murder's been committed and everyone's a suspect. Get your fancy dress on for a party with the Boomers in half an hour. First on BBC One, expect some strong language.
Welcome to Have I Got News for You? I'm Victoria Corrin-Mitchell. In the news this week, Amazon denies that its drivers are losing patience with customers who aren't in when they try to deliver. In the Gulf of Mexico, after successfully smuggling a kilo of cocaine, a drug lord's highly trained raccoon makes a last-minute slip-up. And on the outskirts of Cambridge, a technology company unveils its robot simulation of the final stages of Eddie Izzard's 27th marathon.
Very accurate, that.
On Ian's team tonight is a comedian who recently made a show in Sri Lanka and says the locals were chatty and hospitable, but he yearned for the cold indifference of Londoners back home. Whatever. Please welcome Romesh Ranganathan. And with Paul tonight is a comedian who has described himself as an action transvestite. To this day, Hasbro's worst-selling toy. Please welcome Eddie Izzard. And we start with the biggest stories of the week. Paul and Eddie, take a look at this.
Ah, the Queen, God bless her, there she is. Sorry, there she is.
The Queen is 9 years old.
This is not the time to be practising his archery, and that's when cousins marry.
She has run out of smiles. There was just earlier, they were lighting a thing that goes on, and they said the Queen looked very happy, and she does not.
The Queen's incredibly popular. People are very worried what happens after she dies, so I suggest that she should remain Queen after she dies. I think that would solve all the problems, and all the other heirs to the throne can go on and wave and, you know, all the other stuff.
They could do like a hologram.
I don't know why you're laughing. I think it's perfectly...
I think there should be new waving. I think I'm curving my hand around a candle wave is odd, and someone should teach.
Imagine you're cleaning a window, you should say to her.
Yeah, well,
I think just bring them really up to date. Just brap, brap, brap. You know, that'd be...
That could work, but I think if the Queen was in the chair and going along, and then she's going, Jay! Occasionally, a bit of that, you know, because that always works, doesn't it? That works on stage. You come on stage, you go, you know, occasionally, hey. Just live it large a bit,
Just,
you know?
just once, if she was just... And then she just went... Just once, it'd be amazing. Imagine the coverage. There'd be like a 3-hour special on that, wouldn't it? It'd be a series.
Well, Duke of Edinburgh's done it quite a lot.
So she's 90 and that's it.
And how did she kick off the birthday celebration?
The bumps.
She went to visit the delivery office in Windsor.
Yes.
Sadly, there was no one in, so she had to go next door, but that was the official kick-off of the celebrations. Several commemorative stamps are being issued for the occasion. Why was this a difficult photo shoot? What was the challenge?
There was a problem with the boy. They needed to get all their heads on the same level, and he's extremely inconsiderate, and he's not very tall.
I think there's 5 stamps. I think there's 4 of the heads and then 1 of that little stack that he's standing on.
They're just old photo cases, I think. I mean, literally, the photographer hadn't thought beforehand, so he improvised.
So it hadn't occurred to him that George might be shorter than the other people. and it was a surprise. It's like, oh, my gosh. You look a lot bigger in the official photos. I had no idea.
They could have just cropped the books out and made it look like he had extraordinarily long legs. That's what I would have done.
Well, of course, they couldn't do that because they needed each head to be a stamp.
What horrible pressure on the Queen there. You've got a picture of her head now next to a picture of her head when she was a lot younger. I mean, it feels a bit harsh, doesn't it?
It's the sort of thing the Daily Mail would do. Hasn't she aged badly? 1957, she looked a lot younger.
You know,
she's
that's actually
old.
an anomaly, though. You know, you don't normally get 2 Queen's heads on a stamp. If the Queen's own face is on a stamp, you get a crown, not the silhouette. Because this is a slightly odd photo shoot to fit everything in. They figured they couldn't put a crown neatly in there, so they got 2 Queen's heads. It's very exciting for stamp collectors.
It is, as are most things.
Sorry, but that kid's head on a stamp is one of the creepiest things I've ever seen in my life. I would post the letter just to get it out of my possession.
Normal people who aren't stamp collectors, they would use the stamps, they'd peel them off, but you can still keep the remaining portrait. There you go.
I tell you what, that headless child's still not as creepy as the one with just his head on.
What has 83-year-old Ben Bennett erected in his garden in Windsor? Put up in his garden in Windsor to celebrate the birthday?
An effigy of the Queen, 12-foot effigy.
It is a 12-foot effigy of the Queen, yes. Yes.
Why is she next to a sex offender? Sorry, I'm referring to the head rather than the man in the red. Just in case a lawyer's suddenly woken up.
Are you sure that's the Queen? It looks like Colonel Gaddafi.
Mr. Bennett said they've given joy to hundreds and hundreds of local people.
Can he name them?
Enough of this chat. It's time for our quick Queen quiz.
Right.
Yes.
What did former royal correspondent Jenny Bond see inside the Queen's handbag when it fell open during a trip to Pakistan? Yes?
Bags of heroin.
No.
Not that.
Cigarettes?
No.
The Duke of Edinburgh.
No. I can tell you, Jenny Bond exclusively revealed in this week's Daily Mirror, I saw a hanky and what may have been a small mirror.
It is really desperate, this coverage, isn't it?
Hanky in a mirror, handy if you want to take some heroin.
And as the royal finger dabs into the mound.
Next one. We know that the Queen owns all the swans in Britain. What else does she own that shares its name with a well-known politician? Paul and
Buckingham
Eddie?
Palace, the Duke of Buckingham.
There's
She
not
owns
a
all
well-known current politician.
Oh, not somebody in the English Civil War.
No.
Wasn't clear in the question, you see.
So, sorry. It's sturgeon.
She owns all the sturgeons.
The Queen owns all the sturgeon, dolphins and whales in British waters.
Ah.
Do they know this?
Final question in the quick Queen quiz. How did German magazine Der Spiegel celebrate the Queen's birthday?
Did they make a sculpture of her out of stuff they found?
They put a touching tribute on their front page. There we go,
It was an article specially commissioned by Prince Charles.
Who flew in specially to visit the Queen?
President Obama.
It was President
wife.
Obama. He popped in for lunch. And who did President Obama express no interest in meeting while he was here?
Is it Jeremy Corbyn?
It was Jeremy Corbyn.
Which is, you know, a big surprise after 20 years of Corbyn talking about the fascist hegemony of the United States and the sickening capitalist...
They're a hell of a good band, though, the fascist.
They are.
Storm Woodstock.
Weren't Jeremy Corbyn's people a little bit embarrassed because weren't they saying we're still making up our minds about whether we're meeting President Obama? And then he said, I don't want to meet you anyway, mate.
That would be embarrassing,
No, well,
wouldn't
that's
it?
exactly right.
It's
According
a
to The
snub.
Times, Jeremy Corbyn's team are in discussions over whether to meet President Obama this week. Jeremy may turn down the chance. of not meeting the president. Slightly awkward. Staying with Jeremy Corbyn, what does he become?
He's not staying with Jeremy Corbyn. God, times are hard.
It's embarrassing, staying with Jeremy Corbyn, but doesn't want to talk to him at all the whole time he's here.
There's a new job being advertised within the Labour Party. Anybody know?
Nude job or new job?
A new job. A new job. What job is being advertised in the Labour Party? It's actually for the post of Leader's Office media spokesperson. And this is not to say Jeremy Corbyn should be nervous, but under duration it says, for the period only that Jeremy Corbyn is leader of the Labour Party, or until 31st of December 2016, whichever is sooner. Yes, this is the wonderful news that the Queen is 90 years old and still going strong. Several national events are planned to celebrate this momentous royal milestone, including a service of Thanksgiving at St Paul's, lovely, a street party in the Mall, terrific, and a televised horse pageant presented by Ant and Dec. It's a no from me. According to one of the many fact-filled royal pullouts this week, Buckingham Palace has its own cash dispensing machine. Yes, it's called the Taxpayer. The Queen has bred corgis with dachshunds, which are known as dorgies. Though, of course, that could just be her way of pronouncing doggies. Ian and Romesh, take a look at this.
That's my inspiration. It's a headmistress after one of his policies on education.
That's the Remain camp, hitting the phones.
Boris digging himself out of another situation.
Well, this is week 17 of the big Brexit debate, and it's all Go this week. There's a speech from Gove, which shocked everyone, because it was sort of not terrible.
What I quite like is the fact that they've all been talking about how they don't want to scare anyone into making a decision, and then Michael Gove compared it to a hostage situation, which is... it feels like this sort of the opposite.
Yes, he said, if we vote to stay in the EU, we are voting to be a hostage, locked in the boot of a car, driven by others to a place and at a pace that we have no control over.
Do you know what I think the problem is that when people use analogies that are purely from their own life experience, I just think that's...
Well, it's funny you should say that. The Sun mocked up a picture to show us what that would look like.
That's an old NUT promotional photo, isn't it?
There's some teachers in.
George Osborne said that leaving the EU would cost £4,300 per household. Who'd be taking it?
The economy's going to shrink by 6%, apparently, if we leave the EU, so this money would not be available.
George Osborne put out this massive dossier with, like, loads of equations and dummy variables and all of this crap.
Let's have a look at that equation.
Who... You know, if you're trying to get somebody on side to an argument, you don't use algebra. That's
not the real one, is it?
That's what people hated
That's the real equation.
That is the equation that George Osborne unveiled.
These are all variables that you can't predict, so those equations are absolutely meaningless.
The last four letters seem to spell Egypt.
Who was with George Osborne when he made his big speech? Did you see that?
Liz Truss was there?
It was Environment Secretary Liz Truss. She's not always been a big fan of the EU, of course.
No.
And she was once quite worried about how much of their dairy produce comes to Britain.
We couldn't see that, could we?
Let's have a look.
We import 2/3 of our cheese. That is a disgrace.
But if the consequences of leaving the EU are so terrible, why are they letting us vote on it at all?
Well, it's... Am I going to get into this? I'm a positive person. Basically, I start this discussion with, if we want a world where 7 billion people all have a fair chance, we've got to try and make Europe work. If we want to make it work, we've got to be inside it to make it work. Running and hiding's just not the British way. Standing and fighting is what we should do, so I'm for standing and fighting.
The idea of running and hiding does sound pretty cool, though. Like, I don't know, it sort of implies that if we leave the EU, they won't be able to find us. Where's Britain gone? Got no idea.
That's what they think.
Left the EU, I haven't seen it for a few months.
So, Eddie, you're pro-EU. Who is your unlikely ally who'd emerged this week?
Oh, I don't know. Well, this is a thing. This is a thing. I thought you were just talking to me.
We have been recording this whole time.
Could it be thinking people of the United Kingdom?
No, it's Jeremy Clarkson. If you can't trust someone who punches a younger man in the face when he doesn't get a steak, who can you trust? That's what I say. Jeremy Clarkson said the EU is a liberal, kind, balanced fulcrum in a mad world.
So why is he in favour of it, then?
Who were the big celebrity leavers, the big outers?
Ian Botham.
Yes.
Katie Hopkins, isn't she leave?
I don't know.
I think we want her to leave. I think that's the other way around.
The list I've got here is Ian Botham, Eddie the Eagle, Joan Collins and Frederick Forsyth. It's like a Parkinson from the 80s. Amazing lineup. What irritated Boris Johnson this week?
A rash.
While Boris Johnson was making a speech, the reporter Michael Crick was doing a piece to camera at the same time. Let's have a look.
Well, as you heard there, the typical Boris Johnson rhetoric. I was talking earlier to people in the crowd.
Can we tell Crick to... Can someone go and interrupt Crick at the back there? Tell Crick. You can do your piece to camera when I finish.
One of the interesting little incidents we caught... excuse me, I'm live on television.
Guys, yeah, well,
Okay,
keep quiet.
All right.
The guy's trying to talk.
Okay.
You're interrupted.
I'm just trying to explain what's going on here.
Well, yeah, so is he.
Okay. Earlier, excuse me. I was just trying to explain. Okay.
Are you all right there, Michael? I think maybe we'll leave you there for now.
Fine.
This is a debate on Europe which has generated so many column inches. George Osborne issued a stark warning that Brexit would cost each household £4,300 a year. Blimey, that's 4 rolls of his dad's wallpaper. The President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, admitted that the British public are fed up with hearing about olive oil jugs, the permitted height of a hairdresser's heels and the curvature of cucumbers. But enough about that celebrity injunction. And so to round 2, the strengthometer of news. Fingers on buzzer, teams.
Yes, this is Johnny Depp and his wife have been fined because they smuggled, or they didn't think they were smuggling, but that's essentially what they were doing, dogs into Australia, which you're not allowed to do because of quarantine laws and that. They would say that dogs end up looking like their owners, and there is a perfect example of it beginning to happen genetically.
Do you know the dogs' names?
Boo?
Yeah, they're called Pistol and Boo.
Yeah.
That alone is worth community service. Yeah, they took them into Australia without the right paperwork.
Yes.
And Johnny Depp's wife, Amber Heard, she could have got 10 years in prison. What was the key to their defence?
She wouldn't like to be in prison for 10 years?
Because they're incredibly famous, the Australian authorities said if they made a video and they were very, very sorry, then they would let them off the prison sentence.
I'd quite like to have seen Johnny Depp apologise for his version of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory as well, actually.
Well, let's have a look at the video.
Australia is a wonderful island with a treasure trove of unique plants, animals, and people.
It has to be protected.
Australia is free of many pests and diseases that are commonplace around the world. That is why Australia has to have such strong biosecurity laws.
And Australians are just as unique, both warm and direct. And if you disrespect Australian law, they will tell you firmly.
I am truly sorry that Pistol and Boo were not declared. Protecting Australia is important.
Declare everything when you enter Australia.
Did you find that a sincere apology, Paul? Were you convinced by that?
I think he was drunk.
The internet was sceptical. Twitter user Scott suggested it looked like when you Skype your parents and Dad still can't deal with you being gay, but Mum is at least trying. Staying with celebrities, you'll know this, Ian. Which famous pop star made an unlikely appearance on the Isle of Skye last week? That's right, it was Kanye West, of course.
I thought that was one of the islands.
Yes, you'd only know he was there if you were a very eagle-eyed reader of the West Island Free Press. This appeared on page 16, next to a small story about a kayaker saving some sheep. It said, American man visits Skye. The story continued. The gentleman in question is Mr. Kanye West, apparently in North Skye to record the video for a new song. Mr. West is well known for his hip-hop, his outspoken opinion and his marriage to a woman who gained notoriety for a sex tape.
That's proper journalism.
Time now for the odd one out round.
Yeah.
Just one between you this week. Your 4R: Midsummer Murders, Captain Calamity, Thriplow Daffodil Festival and a VHS of the 1986 Snooker World Championship.
Captain Calamity was the one who kept being rescued by the Coast Guard.
That's right, yes. His bike proved to be useless at sea.
Yes, he had to be rescued 9 times, sailing from Norway to America. They had to call out the Coast Guard in Norway, Denmark, Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland, Scotland and Cornwall, which is where they ended up in January, about 3,000 miles short of the target.
Blimey.
Sorry, did he arrive in Cornwall thinking he'd made it?
He was expecting to see Indians.
I mean, it was a bit of a calamity, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
And were there no daffodils out in the Daffodil Festival? Which I find is a problem.
I think the picture of the piece, the top left-hand corner, that is the odd one out.
No, it's not. Shall I tell you? They've all failed to live up to their names, apart from Captain Calamity.
Who is a calamity? So
Who
he's the
is
odd
a
one out.
calamity?
That's really thin.
Yeah, that's...
Controversially, an episode of Midsummer Murders was screened in which there were no murders.
Oh. There is normally a murder. I mean, the death rate there is higher than Kabul.
Why wasn't there a murder?
Well, it turned out that the victim wasn't really dead. Not to spoil it for anyone who's going to watch.
So what happened? He was just taking a nap or something? Like, just for ages?
Is anyone a fan of Midsummer Murders?
Big fan.
Yeah?
When I'm at home, all I watch is either Midsummer Murders or that Johnny Depp video. Just...
That VHS of the 1986 World Snooker Championship belonged to the 1986 champion.
Dennis Taylor, was it?
It was Joe Johnson. But he told The Guardian, the tape goes in and we're all sat round. We could watch the last couple of frames and the presentation, do it as a family, you know, quite nice. Then it comes on, He-Man, Masters of the Universe. Where's my snooker? Wind on, it's still not there, it's gone. One of my boys had taped over the whole thing. The Joe Johnson story I find quite poignant.
Yes.
Because he was an amateur who hadn't even been expected to qualify for that 1986 tournament. He gave this assessment of his chances at the time. He said, I was playing Bill Werbenick a few months before. He hadn't won a game all year and he liked to drink, did Bill. Before our game, he'd had 8 pints. And I'm thinking to myself, lovely. On top of his 8 pints, he had one for every frame we played. That was 18. By the end, he drunk 26 pints. And he beat me 10-8. That's how bad I was. And then he won, but they'd wiped the video.
What did he do to his children? Did he kill them? Because that would be fair.
At the Thriplow Daffodil Festival, there were no daffodils.
Right.
Because of the warm winter, all the daffodils have bloomed early. And now they're dead.
What's supposed to happen at the festival when there are daffodils? You just go and look at some daffodils?
Just look at them.
I mean, isn't it a massive blessing they weren't there? I mean, it sounds dreadful.
But it's not just daffodils.
So miserable.
What's
What's a daffodil festival? What do you expect? Tulips?
There are many different sorts of daffodil.
Are there, really? Oh, I didn't know that. OK, fine, now you've got me...
Different shades, different colours.
Now you've piqued my interest.
What do you do that's so exciting?
What do I do?
Yeah.
I went to an asparagus festival.
Yes, all of these things have failed to live up to their names, apart from Steve Shapiro, a.k.a. Captain Calamity, who has given up sailing. Midsummer Murders is filmed in Oxfordshire, where no real crimes are committed, as we all remember from the Rebecca Brooks case. Time now for the Missing Words round, which this week features as its guest publication the Cucumber Growers Association's e-Cucumber newsletter. It's a fairly tasteless publication. And we start with, if you want to be adventurous with cucumbers, what?
Check out the weight in A&E.
If you want to be adventurous with cucumbers, try them in a dessert.
Yes.
This is from the e-Cucumber newsletter about a range of new recipes designed to increase cucumber consumption.
Yes.
E-Cucumber newsletter suggests recipes such as cucumber panna cotta with strawberries.
Wow.
Although if you're making this at home and you don't have any cucumber to hand, you can always just use nothing instead. Next. Man wakes up to discover he's what?
Donald Trump. Piers Morgan.
Skydiving.
No. Man wakes up to discover he's bought a yak online. Yes, an American man...
He's got a special button on the computer you should never press.
An An American man took sleeping pills and awoke the next day to find he'd been shopping at an online company called Yaxon Things. The unnamed man cancelled the order for over $3,000, explaining, "I'm not Baron Moneybags von Richfuck." We should stop using that name. Jerry Hall is Googling it and looking for wedding venues. Next, huge duck army. What?
Huge duck army absolutely massacres tiny duck army.
Faces massive bill.
Huge duck army patrols South African vineyard. This is a vineyard in South Africa that uses an army of 800 ducks to control pests. Next, 18-foot-long cucumber. What?
Does not bother woman with 19-foot corridor.
18-foot-long cucumber available for events. The Cucumber Growers Association.
Oh, that must be the finale for the Daffodil Festival.
Yeah.
Here it is.
Is that real?
It looks a bit like a dirigible.
It's got a handle in the middle of it, look.
Yeah.
Like, it's as if they're going to pick it up there and... I mean,
break
what?
down the doors of a massive salad.
Next, bald men on high alert. What?
As seagulls target pates.
Good enough.
What?
Yes. Bald men on high alert as marauding owl attacks. It is a bird one. This is about an owl terrorising people in Devon. One bald victim of the so-called terror owl was Richard Clevedon Smith, who reluctantly agreed to recreate the incident for the local paper.
I see that in the photograph behind him, the local Beatles tribute band are restaging the cover to Abbey Road.
Finally, whenever Roger Beard puts on his cucumber suit, what?
Whenever Roger Beard puts on his cucumber suit, Roger Cucumber puts on his beard suit.
In fact,
Have you got a picture of the two of them standing next to each other?
well, actually, that's a rather moot point, because the answer is, whenever Roger Beard puts on his cucumber suit, everybody wants a photo. And, yes, here is Roger in his suit. What a ridiculous outfit the Cucumber Growers Association is. So, the final scores are... Ian and Romesh have 4, Paul and Eddie have 6. Before we go, there's just time for the caption competition.
Here, mate, want to buy an invisible kestrel?
On which note, we say thank you to our panellists Ian Hislop and Romesh Ranganathan, Paul Merton and Eddie Izzard, and I leave you with news that at the Institute of Chartered Accountants Spring Ball, they come to the conclusion that they're just not Conga people. In Missouri, on hearing the words, "I could still be president," a child suffers an instant reaction. And on a walkabout in an amusement park, David Cameron mistakenly believes a member of the public is asking him to buy 2 ice creams. Good night.
It's back next Friday at 9. Now, on the phone, to a man, is Maureen having an affair? The secret can't stay hidden for long. Boomers next. And later, BBC 4 pays tribute to one of music's most inspirational figures, Prince. A Purple Rain is at 10.